Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. In today's video, I'm updating my reading journal first. I finished reading season 2 of Newlywed Special Benefits, aka Special Benefits for Newlyweds. You may recall from last year, but I absolutely love the series. It is one of my, if not my most favorite, Omegaverse series. So season 1 has already been officially translated and released, but season 2 has not yet begun yet, at least as of the time I'm recording this video. I'm also a little bit sad because the person who was translating the series had to stop for health reasons, and the person who's translating it now is doing a good job, but like the person who was translating it before was like really going the extra mile. Like all of the sound effects were not only translated but like stylized. Like they were really doing a really great job, like possibly even better than the official translation, which actually I haven't read it yet, so let me not judge something I haven't even read yet. Anyway, all of that is to say season 2 is over. Actually, the side story or side stories have not yet started yet for season 2. In season 1, I think there were 2 at the end of the season. I think they start maybe at the end of the month. It might just be 1 chapter though, I don't even know. And also it's kind of hard for me to talk about season 2 because if you haven't read season 1, then season 2 would be such major spoilers. But if you've never read the series, it's so silly. It's about this guy who has failed his college entrance exam twice, I think. And he agrees to marry this other guy because in this world, Korea has this like program that will either significantly reduce tuition or maybe it's like free tuition for newlywed couples because they are trying to get the birth rates up. So they want to ensure that people are well educated and get good jobs in order for them to be stable and have families, have babies. And the main character and the male lead essentially are like, we are going to scam this system. And so they get into this fake relationship and shenanigans ensue. The main silliest thing about this story is that they have these watches that measure their pheromones, and because they're married couples, their numbers are supposed to like hit certain targets, and in order to hit those number targets, they have to interact physically. So like even just a hug will be like 5 points or something like that, and then of course further interactions from there are worth more points. What I will say about season 2 is that it did something that like I personally hate. There's just a certain trope, I won't even tell you what it is. I just hate it no matter what sort of media it's in. But I will say author Do-kyung, like she kind of did it in a way that at least sort of makes sense. Like it explains the beginning of season 1 a lot. So I will give the author that. Like I don't think it was a terrible decision to like include this trope, but it's just something that I personally hate. I feel like it takes like a little bit of like the charm, enchantment out of like a romance story. But I just love the two of them so much. Like I feel like in terms of Omegaverse, like I let Choi Sunwoo get away with things that I would never let another character get away with. But that's because, and this is honestly kind of the main point of the story, both Sunwoo and Yidam are freaks. Like I wrote that in my journal. Capital F, capital R, capital E, capital A, capital K, capital S. They're freaks. Like if the main character likes it, then I love it. You know, good for him. Many times though this season I thought to myself, you are in college. Not only are they just like in college, they're first years, like they're freshmen in university. Like let's think about our life past a little bit more. And also another thing that I wanted to say that like kind of doesn't have to do with the story, but like sort of, in the author's review at the end of season 2, I read something that I have read so many times before, and it's just like a personal grievance I have. The author was talking about how she was having like so much fun writing Sunwoo's backstory. There's like a large portion of season 2 that's about Sunwoo like before, and she was saying how like her editors and also the readers were like, yeah, so like where are those explicit scenes at? I literally felt my entire heart crack open. I cannot tell you how many times I have read that in an author's review, and like it's one thing if it's coming from the readers, but the fact that editors are forcing authors to write things in certain ways, and like I get it, don't get me wrong, I get it, like, you know, that's what sells, I get it, but it really just like disgusts me to the bottom of my soul that like authors and artists aren't allowed to make the stories that they necessarily want to make. And I just feel like that's how we ended up here with this like epidemic of stories that maybe are beautifully drawn, but they have no plot, they have no substance. And because this is one of my favorite manhwas in the whole entire world, I just don't want that to happen to this story. I don't want that to happen to any story, but especially not this one. And like I said, this isn't even like close to the first time that I've seen this happen, that I've read an author's review and they've said something similar. But I really can't wait for season 3. It's just so good. I love the series so much. I can't wait to see what those two get up to, and also maybe see if like the side characters, if there's a return of them. Also, for anyone who has read season 2, my favorite scene was whenever Sunwoo came to pick Yidam up at the cafe, and he was like, oh, you're good looking, are you taken? And then the two of them just like naturally fell into step together, and they just like started walking home, and Yidam was like, I'm married, you know. That was so cute. But anyway, this spread is finished. I just love the two of them so much. The next spread I'm making is also for my reading journal. I finally finished reading I Can't Get Through the Night Alone. I say finally finished because I started reading it 2 years ago. I think it was May 2023. It was being translated by a scan team back then, and I don't remember when they finished, but basically like by the time the story would have been finished, I think the announcement that it was being released officially had come out. So I was like, oh, I'll just wait for the official release then. As you know, I really love historical fiction, and this story is about a Japanese man living, of course, in Japan after World War II. And he meets this American soldier. Now, one thing I will say, number one, I'm not falling for the American soldier good guy propaganda at all. Also, you know that tweet that's like, no white man has ever done anything good in Asia, whatever that tweet says, that also applies to me to this situation. But I will say the fact that the two of them are soldiers, or I guess one used to be a soldier and one is currently a soldier, and you know, they're on opposing sides, I thought that added a layer to the whole entire story. So the Japanese man, Sei, he works at kind of like a nightclub sort of place, you know, like the kind of place where like men will come in and, you know, the girls pour them drinks and stuff like that, that kind of place. And the reason he works at this place in part is because, as the title of the manga says, he really can't get through a night alone. During the war, he was in a cave, I believe, and he saw who I assume was his best friend. They never really said who the character was, but I'm assuming it was his best friend. He saw him unfortunately lose his life. And ever since then, he just like has not been okay. And when he meets this white soldier named Jim, he's like, yeah, I'm gonna mooch off this guy. Like, I'm gonna let him, you know, give me some money. Like, yeah, sure, why not? Which is really interesting because later in the manga, you kind of learn more about like his backstory, like his history and who his family is. And like, he like seriously does not need the money. But anyway, Jim is the one who has like an interest in Sei first. And he just like is like, yeah, come live at my house. You can come live with me, Sei. And Sei is like, we should be a couple then, right? And he's like, yeah, sure, like that would make me happy. And then of course, like even though it was fake at first to Sei, of course it becomes real. He really does come to love him. And I will say, Jim is a very nice, sweet man. Like he's very insistent on like taking their relationship slow. And he's like genuinely very interested in Japanese culture, which like, you know, again, white men in Asia. But he does seem like genuinely interested and like has an appreciation and love for it, which makes Sei happy. And honestly, I can imagine that, like, you know, here's this person who's essentially your enemy and is telling you that like you have this like beautiful, wonderful country. I really loved that their dynamic was essentially like society is against them being together because they're two men. Also, like in a way, society doesn't want them to be together because like 2 seconds ago they were enemies. There's a really interesting line where I think it's when Sei first sees Jim's house and he says the conqueror versus the conquered, because Jim lives in this like, you know, nice like American military base housing. And in Japan, there are people just like literally on the streets. People who have lost everything, their homes, their livelihoods, their jobs, their families. And then on top of all of that, like Sei's family definitely does not want him to be with this man. There's a language barrier, of course. Jim is the one who like speaks Japanese more fluently and like Sei doesn't know like any English at all. And then of course there was a geography barrier because like eventually, you know, the American soldiers were no longer going to be occupying Japan, so they were leaving and Jim was going. This is one of those stories that I honestly wish were longer because there's just so much to explore there. Like there's so many things that really should be keeping them apart. So many layers to their relationship, so many complexities. This manga was probably my most anticipated for this year, for 2025. Seriously, like of all of them, like this one was probably at the very top. And so I'm so happy I finally got to finish reading it. I really do just think it's such a beautiful story of healing and it's just so interesting. 2 characters like that. Like I said, I do wish it were longer. I feel like there really wasn't much to know about Jim. Like I guess he kind of like had his own stuff, but like Sei was the one I thought was the most interesting considering all of the factors going into him being with this white man. Also, it's fun to read a story of like an interracial couple as someone who is mixed race herself. I feel like I don't often see that in BL stories, so that was kind of refreshing as well. I'm pretty sure this manga is on my list of my favorite BL series that I made like last year sometime. If you want to scroll through my community posts, you can find it there somewhere. And I would definitely say this is still one of my favorite historical BLs because the way it doesn't like shy away from showing the realities of life in Japan after World War II, I think is really important. And how like so many women like were kind of, you know, cozying up to American soldiers just to like try to get out of Japan to make a better life for themselves. Just like very sad and somber to think of, especially seeing like Sei and Jim's fictional love story. It's like you can't help but wonder that, you know, undoubtedly so many women did not get that same kind of love story and that they were really just like acting on survival instincts, trying to get themselves into a better situation. But anyway, I'm so happy I could read this manga finally in its entirety. And the last spread I'm making in today's video is also for my reading journal. I literally just finished reading this manga called Fated Not to Meet. I like that in the title, the not is capitalized. I honestly would have never read this just because of the title. I kind of really don't even know why it's called that. And also the cover, like the cover in combination with the title just seemed like something I wouldn't like, but I'm glad I clicked on this. I actually saw it on Hoopla from my library. I think I said this before, but my library gets in quite literally every single new Tokyo Pop published BL. Like every single one of them, my library gets in. So this story, I actually love the setup of it. I'm so happy I read it because the setup is so, like, I love when the premise of a story is just like interesting. Like I love when an author has an idea. So the main character of the story, Izumi, I think his name is, he gets asked by one of his friends if he will be a plant on this friend's dating app. I thought that was so real. Those dating apps are literally flooded with fake women. Like I don't know what else to tell you. Like all of those apps, because it's like something like 80% of men are users and 20% of women, something like that. So it's like, yeah, those are fake women on those apps, of course. But this app that his friend has made is actually a gay dating app. So there's only men on there. And all his friend has asked him to do is just, you know, chat with guys. Like that's it. Well, one day he starts chatting with this guy and he realizes he has so much in common with him. They have the same favorite movie and he loves chatting with this guy so much that he's like, what if I just met up with him? Like, we don't have to do anything else. Like, we don't have to date. Like, we can just be friends. That is so silly, by the way. Meeting someone from a dating app and being like, yeah, like, let's just meet up and show each other our movie merch. Like, that is so silly. And of course, once he gets there, who's there? His work colleague. And not just any work colleague. It's his frenemy. Well, really just enemy from work. I feel like this is like the 10th BL I've read this year where people are enemies at work. I don't mind though, because I feel like work is like one of those places where it's like, it gives the characters proximity to each other, because otherwise, like, how would they ever meet then? But yes, Izumi and Sendo, I think is the other guy's name, they are work enemies. But quickly they become meeting up at hotels and meeting up at each other's apartments enemies. And of course, this whole time, Sendo thinks that, you know, he met Izumi like organically, essentially. He has no clue that Izumi is lying about being gay. That's another thing that I find is funny. I guess in a way, it's like one of those tropes of like, oh, like I'll only look at you, like I only have feelings for you. But I just feel like it's a little silly to be like, yeah, I'm not really gay, and then everything that is going on between those two. Like even until the very end of the story, he's essentially like, I'm straight. Okay. Izumi has this like complex too of like, he needs to be the best always. He needs to be number one at everything he does. He needs to win. And that honestly ends up like playing into like their eventual like sort of like breakup moment, because he doesn't want to tell Sendo the truth because he's scared he'll be disappointed in him. Like the same way he never wanted to disappoint his parents growing up. Now he does not want this man that he loves to be disappointed in him either. So I thought that made sense. The male lead, I feel like we didn't know as much about him. He kind of was just sort of like a, oh, I've never really loved anyone. Like he doesn't really seem like he'd be the type to like show his feelings that much. But actually he was kind of cute at times. Like he drew this little like dog cat thing for the main character, and the main character thought it was so funny. He was like, I'm gonna look at this whenever I'm down because it'll cheer me up. And then at the very end of the manga, there was like some reasons for why the main character was down, and he drew him another little dog cat thing, and I thought that was so cute. Honestly, usually whenever a manga has like a bunch of explicit scenes, I feel like there's kind of just like no plot at all. But because the setup of this one was so unique, I feel like there was more like intrigue to it. Like it made sense why like maybe the two main characters wouldn't be together, or like the fact that there was like this gigantic secret looming over them. I will always give points for unique and interesting ideas. Like I'll probably never read another BL where a dating app is involved in this way. But yeah, I liked it. And also if you are someone who does like a lot more explicit scenes in your BL stories, then you definitely probably like this one. There were a lot. I'm probably going to look and see if the author has anything else I'm interested in though, because I do think that the premise of the story was interesting and also the art was nice. So like there's no reason why I wouldn't read anything else by them. But now that I'm finished making the spread, we can go put all of my spreads into my digital journals. This really has nothing to do with my journal spreads at all, but guess what's sitting next to me right now? I wonder if I shake them, they'll make a noise. Let me see. I don't know what that sounded like. Maybe I'll see when I'm editing. But in case you couldn't guess by the sound, that was the sound of 120 Crayola colored pencils. Yeah, I did it. I finally bit the bullet and I bought myself some colored pencils, and I also bought one coloring book, but only one. And also I'm putting it up. I'm not even gonna look at it until the year 2026. Cause like, you know, I still have mine that my best friend bought me. But they just came in the mail yesterday and it was like a little nice treat for me. I feel like I've had a week. It has been so hot. I can feel the summer misery setting in, which I'm not happy about. Oh, also this week I've been working on the new stationery deco kit. I was saying in my last video, right? Yeah, my last video, that I'm working on the video about how I make my stationery. So it is slowly coming along. And I'm just excited to show you. I kind of blended together like two separate ideas that I had. Like two separate deco kit ideas, like now they're just one. I think it's gonna be good. I'm also currently planning like, what am I gonna do for Summerween? What are you going to do for Summerween? I feel like there's Summerween the day, and then there's kind of just like Summerween like as a concept, like in general, any day in the summer could be Summerween. I kind of already did one Summerween activity like earlier this month. And then also this week I had HBO Max, what is it called? HBO? I think it was just HBO for free. And there were a bunch of like A24 like horror movies, but I'm not good at watching scary things. So I decided not to watch anything. I was almost gonna watch Heretic, and then I was like, no, like I really can't. I did get a book from the library though. It's called The City in Glass. And I don't really read a lot of fantasy, but I have it sitting here next to me too. I kind of want to get into that. And it's about an angel and a demon. So like kind of Halloween-y. I'm definitely going to be making some Summerween spreads at some point. But anyway, thank you so much for watching today's video. Everything I used in today's spreads is in my Pinterest board, and the link to that is in the description box along with the links to my other social media accounts. If you have any questions, let me know and I'll do my best to answer them. Also, if you have any Summerween ideas, let me know. Thank you for hanging out with me again today, and I will see you in the next one. Bye everyone!